Paulie, give us the idea that you have to help. So against the Power 5, we just had Alabama allegedly stealing Miami of Ohio's kicker. And what would be your suggestion? Good idea, bad idea?
Yeah, that's the backdrop. The story last week, Miami of Ohio had a very good kicker. Alabama's always looking for a kicker. How about this? When a Power 5 school in college football snags a very good player from a smaller program, non-Power 5 or FCS, the bigger school pays the smaller school a transfer portal fee. Similar to the transfer fee like in the Premier League, but this is a fixed fee. It can be set by position. So if like the Akron Zips quarterback goes to LSU, they get $100,000. But if they're offensive lineman, it's $80,000 and so on. It's a fixed fee per position. Back to you.
Okay. What would Miami of Ohio get for their kicker?
Let's say they got $75,000 for Alabama to acquire their kicker. Alabama will be comfortable to pay for that to get a kicker.
Yeah.
And it helps the smaller schools with their football programs financially overall.
I like it. Yeah, I'm okay with it. Let's bring in Marty Smith of the Mothership, ESPN reporter, and he's a spokesperson advisor for the new competitive giving product called Game Change. We'll have that for him to discuss. All right, so what do you think, Marty?
About the transfer portal news?
Yeah.
So here's my thing. The player decided to go in the portal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the player's decision is to go in the portal, then why would the school he's leaving benefit? Like, I don't know that works, because now I will say this. Here's my fix. My fix is, now that there is revenue sharing at the player level, right? Players sign 3-year contracts with the university, and if they leave, then there are buyouts involved from the school they go to. There are paybacks to NIL collectives and all of that. We've spent years going, well, the coaches leave. The coaches can just leave whenever the hell they want to. Yeah, they leave, and there's $76 million buyouts and all these things. So I really feel like we're in an era now where the player should have to do that too.
Do you think Alabama maybe enticed the kicker to leave Miami of Ohio?
No idea, man.
Okay.
I don't know those dealings, but if I'm a Miami of Ohio kicker and I've had a really good year, and my dream since, and I've not talked to that young man, this is an inference on my part. I've spent my entire life dreaming of playing at the highest level of college football and performing on the biggest stages. And I jump in the portal to see if someone wants me, and Alabama comes calling, I'm probably going to bounce.
Oh, no, I get that. But what I'm saying is these smaller schools are being poached constantly. That you get somebody who's all MAC, and then somebody's going to go out and bring them in.
Absolutely.
But, these teams, they can't compete. You're trying to replenish your football program, and you're losing one of your best players to the highest bidder. So,
yeah, that happens. I think that happens at every level now. It's happening Power 5 to Power 5. It's happening all over the place, and that's one thing that's made it. Look, this is not a swan song cry me a river for the coaches, because they make a fortune, but it is hard for those folks now in roster management perspectives, because you just don't know who you're going to have or what you're going to have when you finally get to the time where you're going to put a hat on a hat. And so it is a difficult moment, and I look forward to the time when at least we have some sort of uniform parameters within which everyone has to operate.
How important is the Colorado-North Dakota State game tomorrow night?
I think it's very important. I think it's very important for Coach Sanders and his program to get off on a very positive foot between the lines. It's obviously been a bit of a tumultuous time here in the last couple of weeks for them. They started so strong last year, and I believe they were the biggest story in sports after they beat Kansas State last year to open the season, and then were competitive until they weren't. And so I think it's a really important game for that program and for Coach, certainly.
Well, they opened up with TCU last year.
That's what I meant. Who did I say? Kansas State.
Kansas
TCU.
State. Yeah, TCU. And then it got to the point where You got to see what college football is all about. You got to have a good offense and defensive line, no matter what your skill position level is. And Colorado certainly didn't have that. College football going to miss Saban or Harbaugh more?
I would say Saban. They both brought very unique attributes to the game and so star power to college football in general. Coach Saban really rewrote how this all works during his time at Alabama. To me, he was the most powerful, definitive voice in the sport as a head coach, and his coaching tree is ridiculous. You look at Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, Billy Napier, on and on. And so I feel like the answer is probably Coach Saban.
Back to the transfer portal for a moment. I'm looking at the Heisman Trophy candidates, the favorites, and most of them are transfers.
Yep, that's right.
You know, Georgia and Alabama have their quarterbacks that they recruited, but is this sort of the wave of the future that you think you spend, or maybe it's the present, that, you know, you're going to see these quarterbacks establish themselves, put them out to the highest bidder, transfer, and you're bringing in an experienced quarterback?
It's definitely right now. When you look at the fact that Bryce Young stayed at Alabama his whole career and won the Heisman Trophy, but Jaden Daniels transferred to LSU from Arizona State. Joe Burrow's transfer from Ohio State, he'd already graduated, so his sort of dynamics are different, but he didn't become Joe Burrow until he found a new home and a new energy. And so that is what these young men have at their disposal right now. And quite frankly, I think it's great for them. You look at Jackson Dart, who was at USC. He's now at Ole Miss. You look at Carson Beck, who's been at Georgia from the jump. I did a 30-minute conversation with Carson yesterday in Athens. And so there are some who stay who will have that opportunity, but the vast majority of them, that they need to leave to find that right energy for them and the right coaching. And after, like, guys, players respond to different energy differently. And it's nice that they have the opportunity to have another chance, as it were.
Well, you also get these quarterbacks who come into the NFL that are 23, 24 years of age. That's why when Tom Brady said, you know, that this is terrible, it's tragic what's going on with these young quarterbacks. Well, first of all, they're not young quarterbacks. They're not 21. And you know, Bo Nix was with two different programs. Jaden Daniels, two different programs. That advantage, being more mature, that's why you're seeing these rookies starting. You're going to have at least 3, maybe 4 rookie quarterbacks starting in the NFL.
Right. Yeah, they're extremely well prepared emotionally. A lot of young men go into the league and have physical gifts, but they don't maybe have the emotional fortitude yet. And guys like those guys do, because they played extremely difficult competition. They've played, too, to our point about them transferring. They've also been subjected to different types of leadership and different types of infrastructure, which also matters, because they go into the NFL that has different types of infrastructure and leadership, and they've already been subjected to variety and diversity in that way. And I think that really does matter. Now, it also matters who's around you, because you look at Bryce Young. Bryce Young was as ready as any college quarterback I've covered, Dan. And he came here. I live in Charlotte. He came to Carolina, no infrastructure around him, not a lot of talent around him, and people want to write him off. That's crazy to me. C.J. Stroud goes one pick later, has talent around him, and we want to give him the MVP. And I love both those young men as human beings, as individuals. Spent a lot of time with both of them. But they didn't go into the same situations.
Also, early season scheduling, now that we have the 12-team playoff, I don't know if, and I had Sarkisian on last week, and I don't know, like, he didn't have anything to do with playing Michigan week 2. We've seen a couple of the, you know, Clemson against Georgia coming up this weekend. I don't know, are we going to see more of those, because you can play somebody that's tough, but it's not going to probably hurt you as much with a 12-team playoff?
I think we see a lot of them because of money. We've seen these inter-conference matchups for several years now with marquee brands playing against one another. And I mean, if you look at what we have just this Saturday, right? You noted it, Dan. You got Clemson, Georgia in Atlanta. You got LSU, USC in Las Vegas. Texas A&M is hosting Notre Dame at Kyle Field. Miami is going to the Swamp at Florida. There are all of these super marquee games against massive brands, and I love it as a college football nerd and fan. I just think it's wonderful. But yes, to your original point, I look at Georgia's schedule specifically. Let's just talk about the Dogs for a second. All right. They won 2 of the last 3 national titles. They have a very, very difficult schedule this year. They go to Texas. They go to Alabama. They play Ole Miss, on and on. I think they could lose twice and still make the playoff, Dan. It's just a more forgiving format now.
Yeah. Tell me what you're doing with Game Change. We're talking to Marty Smith of the Mothership.
I appreciate so much you asking and for having me on, man. I love your spirit. I love your show. I love your platform and the way you guys do what you do. So I'm grateful for the time and fellowship with you this morning. All right. So Game Change is this. All right. You go to the grocery store now and they ask you, do you want to round up? And so that's what Game Change is. You go to gogamechange.com. You input whatever credit or debit card you so choose. You pick your favorite school, and every single purchase you make with that respective credit card, the balance, it rounds up to the next dollar. The balance automatically goes to the school that you chose. It is considered a charitable donation. It is a tax write-off. And while, all right, if you go to Alabama or Georgia or Tennessee, they have a lot of money, right? Because they have grants of rights from ESPN or from Fox for the Big Ten schools, etc. Notre Dame has NBC. They have a lot of money from television revenue. I went to Radford University, man. We don't have that. And I've worried, are we even going to forget being competitive, man? Are we even going to sustain? And so this is a really cool way for people to automatically donate to that athletic department. The money goes directly to the athletic department, and they distribute it within the department however they so choose. So it's cool, man. I thought it was a really neat initiative, and I'm grateful to be involved.
GoGameChange.com. How long does it take to prep the hair before a TV broadcast?
So, it is the 8th wonder of the world. There's the pyramids and the Sphinx and all that mess. And then you got this this salad on top of my head. It really isn't a very laborious prospect. I just get up, all right? I take some like pomade stuff, right? And I put it in my hands like this, and then I just do a little swoop and maybe a little shape, and that's it. It's not terrible. There's no brushes. There's no dryers. There's no instruments at all except for my hands. And so I know it's a hell of an artistic masterpiece, but it's really not that involved.
Yeah. Well, it's God-given is what it is. God-given. Yeah, good moss.
I mean, look, you're doing well.
Yeah,
look at you.
I'm holding
you're
on.
Doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably on the Mount Rushmore of TV hair.
But I appreciate that you I'm not gonna dye mine. All right, I'm a ginger. I'm a redheaded guy, so dyed red hair, it's just a terrible prospect. And so I'm just gonna let the gray. I earned them, and so I'm just gonna let that ride. And you've done such a good job. It's a distinguished aesthetic.
Well, there was a time at the Mothership where I did dye it.
Did you?
Yeah. And
was that suggested to you?
No. I did it.
Vanity?
I think I wanted to appear younger.
Yeah.
Just so you're not that old guy. And then I did it, and then I realized these TVs nowadays, man, oh man,
it'll out you in a hurry, man. Buddy, you can't hide. Now, I say all the time, high definition is not your friend.
No.
And I mean,
it's
in
not.
so many ways. I'll tell you when that really hit me. And I'm sorry if you guys got to go to break. I'll shut up, but I'll say real quick. There's a great song by George Strait called Troubadour. And the second stanza of that song might be the greatest stanza in the history of music for any genre. All right, it says, the truth about a mirror is that a damned old mirror don't really tell the whole truth. It don't show what's deep inside or read between the lines, and it's really no reflection of my youth. And when you hear what they're saying, you go, golly, I'm getting on up there, man. My smile, I got wrinkles and gray hair, but I don't care, man. Laney's down with it. My wife thinks I'm handsome, so hell with the rest of them.
Oh, not Lainey Wilson.
Not Lainey Wilson, although I'm
Okay.
sure she thinks I'm handsome too.
If
Don't
she,
you think Lainey Wilson would go, yeah, he's handsome?
yeah, it seems like she would say what you need her to say, what you want to hear, though.
She would affirm me.
Yeah.
I need that. I
Yeah.
need affirmation.
Yeah, and then she would say, "Let's have some watermelon moonshine."
That's it, baby. I'm ready right now.
10:30
in the morning.
Good to talk to you, Marty. Thanks for joining us, and good luck this season.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, brother. Have for a long time. Thank y'all for having me.
Marty Smith, ESPN reporter and host, and Good Moss.